Hey guys, on a previous video we created a RESTful API using Node.js and Express. In this video we're going to test that API using Mocha and Chai. So what is Mocha? Mocha is a testing framework for JavaScript. You can use it on the server and on the browser, so it runs on Node.js and the browser. You can use any assertion library you wish. In this case we're going to use Chai. Mocha provides the hooks before, after, before each, and after each. For example, we can use before or before each to set up the database, for example, and then we can use after and after each to clean up the database. Mocha makes it easy to test asynchronous code, and it also provides extensible reporting. What is Chai? Chai is an assertion library for Node.js and the browser, and it can be used with any JavaScript testing framework. In this case, we're going to use it with Mocha, and it provides different styles to write our assertions. So let's quickly review them. We have three assertion styles. We have should, expect, and assert. We can do things like foo should be a string, or foo should be equal bar, or we can use expect and write things like expect foo to be a string, or expect foo to have length of 3. And then we have assert, that I think it's the most common way to do or to write assertions in most languages. For example, you can do things like assert type of, and then you pass two parameters, the object and the expected value of that object or variable. Or you can do things like assert property, the name of the variable, and then the value, in this case, flavors. Okay, remember to subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. As you may remember, on a previous video, we created our RESTful API using Express in Node.js. So here is where we implemented all the different HTTP verbs for the RESTful API. So here we are importing the Express library, and we also use Chai to validate the data. So we've been also using that library. And here we basically created a local array, and we've been using that array as database for our API. So we implemented the get operation to get all our tasks. We implemented the get by ID to get a specific task given this parameter or this identifier for the task. Then we created the post method here. We also implemented the put method. We implemented the patch method, and finally implemented the delete method. So we are basically able to get all the tasks. We can get a specific task by ID. In this case, we are using get to get all the elements, or get a specific task by using the identifier. We can create new tasks. We can update tasks. We can modify specific attributes of the object, or we can remove an element. We can check now that the first task is no longer part of the array. Okay, so what we are going to do now is we're going to test the API using Mocha and Chai. So first, let's stop the server, let's clear this, and let's install the dependencies that we need, that are basically Mocha and Chai. Okay, let's install Mocha first. npm install Mocha. We are going to install this as a development dependency because we're going to use this just to test on our development environment. So I'm going to add save dev. So these dependencies are going to stay on development, and when we create the version for production, let's say, we don't include these dependencies. So I'm going to install Mocha first, and now I'm going to install Chai. And if we go to the package.json file, we're going to see that we have these dev dependencies, Chai and Mocha. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a script just to make it easier to run these tests. So I'm going to write here scripts. And let's call this test. And the command that we are going to run is actually Mocha. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder. Let's call it test. And we're going to add a new file here. Let's call it task.js, because we're going to test our task API. Okay, let's import the different dependencies. So in this case, we need to import Chai, require Chai. We're going to import the server, that in this case is the index, that is actually this one, this file. So we need to import that one, require index. And we are going to define the assertion style. We have should, we have expect, and we have assert. So we are going to use should in this case. So we say assertion style, and we say chai that should. And using this, we define that we are going to use that assertion style. I need to add another dependency that I forgot to add, that is chai HTTP. So I need to install that one. Chai HTTP. Okay, and now I need to use that. First, I need to include that dependency here. It's going to be chai HTTP, and I need to include the library that is chai HTTP. Okay, and I need to use it chai.use chai HTTP. Okay, and now we are able to call our RESTful API using the HTTP protocol. Okay, so in order to create a test using Mocha, we need to describe our test. Let's call it tasks API. And then we define an arrow function where we include our test. Okay, what we're going to test as part of the API, we're going to test the get route. We are going to test the get by ID. Then we're going to test the post operation. We're going to test the put operation. And the patch operation as well. And finally, we're going to test the delete operation. Okay, let's get started with the get operation. In this case, we're going to get all the existing tasks. So first we need to describe our test. So let's say get /API/tasks, and we pass an arrow function here, and here we say it should get all the tasks, and we pass the done object as a parameter, and here we use chai, where we say chai.request request, and we pass the server that is actually the API, and we are going to test the get method, and we pass the resource URL. So in this case, it's going to be /API/tasks, and here we expect, using the end method, we are going to receive an error in case of an error on the server, and a response. And here we add our assertions. So response, we're going to use the should style. So in this case, our assertions will be like this. Response should have status, and in this case we expect a successful result. So response should have status 200. Response that body should be an array, and we also expect that that array includes 3 elements. So if we go back to the server or to our API, we are returning this array with these 3 tasks. So we have these 3 elements. So response that body that length should be equal to 3. Okay, and we need to call the done method here. Okay, so let's run this, npm test, and the test runs successfully. So we are getting the tasks that we expect. So let's make some changes and let's test, for example, I don't know, if we pass the wrong URI, we should have a photo 4 as a response, as a resource not found. So if we run this, in this case, we need to change this. It should not get all the tasks because we are using a wrong URL. So let's run this again. And now we get green for the tasks when we use the right URL. And we get a green test because we are passing the wrong URL and we are getting a 404 as the HTTP status code. Okay, let's move on to the get by ID route. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, so get /API /tasks/:ID, and it should get a task by ID. So here, let's say that we find the task ID, const task ID, and we say 1. We are using 1 because we have 3 tasks. The first one has this ID 1, the second has the ID 2, and the third one, the ID is equals to 3. So we're going to use that one that we know that is part of the response of the API. So we're going to concatenate that here. And here we are going to change the assertions. We're going to expect a 200 as a response. I need to define it here. Okay, so we expect a 200 as a response, but I need to change these assertions because what we expect here as a response body, we expect an object actually. So in order to specify that assertion, we need to do something like this. Response that body that should that be an object. We say object. And we also expect the body should have a property ID. And also the response, that body should have a property name. And the same for the other property that is completed. So we expect these 3 attributes or properties. Completed. Okay. And also we expect that the value of the ID property to be equals to 1. So we add that assertion at the end. Okay, let's run this. And as we can see, all the tests are passing as we expect. So if we, let's say that we expect that the ID is 2, if we run this, we get an error because the expected value is not the one that we received, and that's okay. Okay, I'm going to change this. This is going to be 1, and now we get green in all our tests. Okay, so let's create another test using, I don't know, a random identifier, a value that we know that is not part of our array of tasks. So let's say 123. And in this case, we expect a 404. And if we go back to the API, we are returning actually a message here that says the task with the provided ID does not exist. So we are going to copy this and we are going to add that assertion. So we say that the response that text that should be equals to that string. So in this case, it should not get a task by ID. Let's run this. And as we expect, we are not getting this ID. We get a 404 and we get this error message. So if we go back to Postman, for example, and we execute the get operation, this is an identifier that is valid. So if we run this, oh, sorry, let me start the server. I'm going to create a new terminal. Okay, Node index.js. Okay, so here, if we execute the get operation with an existing identifier, we get this object with these three properties, ID, name, and completed, and the same with the array, right? We get the array if we execute using this resource, but if we use a random value that is not part of the array, we get a 404, as we can see here, and we get that message. Okay, let's go back. Let's clear this. And let's move on to testing our post method. Okay, I'm going to copy this. And here, I'm going to change the description, post API tasks. It should post a new task. And here we're going to create the task that we want to create. So let's say const task, and here we create an object literal, and we pass two properties. We pass the name, that's going to be task 4, and we pass the completed property as false. Okay, and here we change the HTTP method by post, and we remove this, and we need to pass the new task using send, and we pass the task. And in this case, we expect 201 as the status. If we go back to the API, we are using, yes, we are using the 201 HTTP code as a response when we create a new resource. So we are going to make an assertion where we say that we expect that HTTP code as a response. And this is gonna be pretty much the same because we are returning the object that we create here. So we expect an object, and we expect as the identifier, we expect 4 as the value of the identifier for this new object. And we can also add some other assertions. So we expect ID equals to 4. I'm going to copy these two. We also expect the name to be task 4, and we expect the completed property as false. Okay, I'm going to remove these assertions because are redundant. here we are checking not only the value, but also that the property exists. So we don't need those assertions. And I need to add this here. And let's run this test. And we get an error, yes, because there is a space between task and for. So we're gonna change the assertion here, and now this should pass. Okay, and completed equals to false. And yes, there's an error here. I need to close. And now we should get, okay, unexpected token. Okay, here we go. Let's run this again. And now we get green in all our tests. Okay. Let's create another one for the negative. So let's say that we don't pass the name. And as you may remember, we are using Chai here where we define the schema, and we define the name as a required property or as a required attribute. So if we don't pass that attribute, we're gonna get a 400 error. So we expect in this case that it should not post a new task without the name property. So we expect here a 400. And we also expect a text message here. And I need to replace this with this one. The name should be at least 3 charts long. So I'm going to add that message. Okay, let's run this. And our tests are passing just fine. So let's say that I put 200 here. Now I'm going to force this to fail because we're going to get a 400. And yes, so we get a 400 and we expect a 200. That's why it's failing. So I'm going to undo this and put the right assertion there. And if we run it, all our tests are passing. Okay, let's move on to the put route. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to modify an existing task. So I'm going to copy this. This is going to be put API. This is going to be put /API/tasks/1 or /ID to make it more generic. And you should put a task. And we're going to define the identifier of the task. Let's say const task ID equals to 1. And we are going to change the name of the task 1. This task 1 changed. And we're going to set completed to true. Okay, and here we changed the post by put. and we concatenate the task ID. In this case, it's going to be equals to 1. Okay, in this case, we expect 200. And we expect the response to be an object. The ID should be equals to 1. We expect the name to be task1 changed. And we also expect the completed property as true. Okay, so let's run this. And we get green in our new test. Okay, so let's say that I change this and I expect that value as the name of the task. We're going to get a red on that test because the expected value is different from the actual value. So let's remove that. Let's run this again. And we get all green again. Now let's test the put, but now we are not going to pass the name or the correct name. Remember that we define it here. If we go back here, we define that as minimum, we need to pass 3 characters as the name of the task. So we are going to pass just 2. So in this case, we are going to expect a different result. We're going to expect a 400 error, and we're going to expect an error message. So I'm going to copy this because this is the error message that we expect. That is basically the one that says that we should pass at least a 3 characters long name. Let's run this. And I'm going to change this. It should not put a new task with a name with less than 3 characters. So let's run this again. Okay. And now we get all green. If we add a new character here, we're going to get a red on that test because the actual value is different from the expected one. Okay. Let's remove this. Let's run it again. And we get all green again. Okay, now let's move on to the patch route. So I'm going to copy this. In this case, it's going to be the patch HTTP method. And we are going to change just one attribute. Task1 changed. And it should patch. An existing task. I guess I didn't change. It should not put. It should put. This is actually an existing task. So existing task. Okay, I need to change that. Remember that the tests are part of the documentation of any application. So it's important to get this right. Okay, and to actually provide the right description of the tests. Okay. Okay, here we can use our put or update So whatever you prefer. Okay, it should patch an existing task. We define the identifier of the task that we want to patch. We define the attribute that we want to update. And here we create the assertions. That should be 200. We receive an object. The ID should be equals to 1. And we expect this. So let's change this. Let's put just to use a different value that we are using here. Sorry, let's use patch. Okay, and we expect completed equals to true. Okay, let's run this. That was a copy paste issue because we are using put here and we need to use patch actually. Now this is going to pass. Now we are able to use it because when we use put, we require all the attributes, name and completed, but with patch, we only require the name of the task. So let's test passing a name with less than 3 characters. So in this case, we pass TA. And in this case, we expect a 400 error. And as usual, we expect a text message like this one. Okay, let's run this. In this case, it should not patch an existing task with a name with less than 3 characters. Okay, let's run this. And all our tests are passing. Okay, and now let's move on to testing the delete route. This is going to be the last HTTP verb that we need to test. Okay, let's copy this. In this case, delete. We're going to need to pass the ID. We need to change the HTTP verb for delete here. We replace put by delete. And here we expect a 200 response. And that should do it. Okay, and I need to close this. And we need to say that it should delete an existing task. Okay, let's run this. And this is failing because we're sending the task. We don't need to send the task in this case. We just pass the identifier and that's enough. So I'm going to run this again. And now all our tests are passing again. Okay. And now let's say that I execute this delete operation, but I use some random identifier, an identifier that is not part of our database. So I'm going to pass 145. And I expect here a 404. And I also expect a text message. And I'm going to grab that message from here. That is actually this one. The task with the provided ID does not exist. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to include that on the assertion. Okay, so I'm going to run this. And now our tests pass. I need to change the description. It should not delete an existing, a task that is not in the database, let's say, database. Let's run this again. And now all our tests are passing and we have the right description of the test. Okay, guys, that's pretty much it. So we added multiple tests for all the HTTP verbs of our RESTful API. So remember to subscribe to the channel and I see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.